Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Queensland. This is a game in which your farm is being infested in toads. So they talk about how these farmers here brought these toads in to take care of pests, but the problem was this was an invasive species type of thing, and the frogs had no natural predators, so they just grew and expanded, and then they never actually even ate the pests. So this is all these frogs are getting on your farm. You're just trying to get rid of them. You're trying to get them to go at least to these ponds. This is a tile laying game. Think Carcassonne. And if you think that the box looks boring, I got to warn you a little bit here. The game is going to be a bit boring looking itself, but let's see how it plays, see if it overcomes that. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to get 4 tiles, A, B, C, D, which you put together so that you can read them like this, forming the beginning of your farm. And you need to have that facing one of these directions here, because these directions are going to matter a lot over the course of this game. Players are trying to get the most points, and it's pretty simple because on your turn, you're going to take one of these tiles from the board, and you're going to place it so that it attaches to your farm. Now, this game has rules of tile placement. There are 3 different types of terrain. There are sugarcane fields, wheat fields, and soil, and you just need to make sure they match. Your side's going to match one of those things, and you can place it any direction that you want as long as it matches. Now, depending on what tile you took, you'll notice there's 1, 2, or 3 toads next to it. You're going to take that many, and you're going to add them onto the space that you just placed them. Then, you're also going to look at the arrow that you placed on the board and the direction that you place it. So let's say I place it like this, and I put the toad here. All the toads on my board are going to move 1 space in that direction. There are some tiles that will cause all the players, everybody's frogs to move in that direction. And there are some tiles that when you place them down, you will move the toads twice. Like this one here, you're going to move your toads twice. Now, toads do a few things. They're not going to move off your board. So if they hit a wall, they're kind of just going to stop there. And once they get to a pond, they're never going to move off that pond. They're going to stick on a pond. And in fact, after you're done moving, if you have 5 or more frogs in a pond, which will happen because if you notice this tile is adding 3 toads, this one's adding 2, hopefully you're moving them around to get them in ponds. If you have 5 or more in a pond, they're all going to come off and you score. If you have exactly 5 toads, you get 5 points. But if for some reason you got 6 or more, because you will have groups moving around, you'll only score 3 points. Then, after you take a tile, you'll slide the tiles down that you've taken, add a new one here to the market. And we keep going until no one can add any more. At that point, you're going to count how many toads you have in your farm, and whoever has the fewest toads is going to get 3 points, and whoever has the most toads is going to lose 3 points. You're then going to look at your completed fields that you have. So let's say I built myself a sugarcane field here. Let's see if I can find a way to build this one. There we go. That fits nicely. So there's my biggest sugarcane field. You're going to get 2 points for each tile that's part of this field. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would score me 10 points. Your biggest wheat field is going to score you 1 point for each tile. And then you're going to look at farm traits. So there are 3 different farm traits on a farm. There are tractors, there are sheep, and there are scarecrows. And you're trying to collect those, and you're going to get points for those based on the number that you have and the number of players. So say in a 3-player game, if I have 6 tractors, I'm going to get 8 points. If I have 3, I'm going to get 2 points. So you're going to score for each of those based on how many you have and how many players are in the game. Then you're going to get 1 point for each pond that you have. So ponds are kind of worth a point. And whoever has the most points is the winner of the game. Man, folks, I gotta say, the whole look of this game, the frogs are fine. They're nice little screen printed, little frog things. They're fine, but man, this game from the cover to the board to everything just really screams out like a game that came out in the 90s. I don't know what it is, but the whole thing just isn't that interesting to look at. And unfortunately, it's not particularly interesting to play. It's fine. I don't think it's a bad game. I'll tell you my rating right now is a 6 out of 10 because it's fine. But I don't feel myself really caught up in anything. So the whole idea here is to take a tile And when you take a tile, you're thinking of multiple things. You're thinking, okay, I want to build a big, huge, green field and a huge wheat field because you get a lot of points at the end of the game. Why not? And I'm trying to get a lot of scarecrows and a lot of other things. Fine. But you're also thinking about, how many frogs do I get from the tile? And then what direction are those frogs going to go in? So problematically, this makes, when you take a tile, it drags the game down a bit, right? Because you sit there and you go, okay, I can take that tile, put it here, and that will make these frogs move up and do that and do that. And then you couple that with the fact that sometimes you go, okay, that moves everyone's frog tile. So if I place it this way, I'm going to move yours that direction, yours move that direction, yours move that direction. But if I place it this way, and that's too much thinking for what is pretty much a light game. That also means that you can't really plan ahead because you can put frogs out and someone else could play a tile that forces your frogs to move. There are a lot of tiles that move other people's frogs. So you're trying to manipulate your frogs because you want to get rid of frogs. Having too many frogs in any game makes you gain or lose 3 points. Having the least or most, which, by the way, not that big of a swing. I was really surprised by that. I was like, who cares? But more importantly, every tile that a frog is on at the end of the game comes off the board. That's worse. So that's the bigger deal. And I didn't mention that over because I want to talk about it here. That's kind of a cool thing, but you definitely want to move those frogs into ponds and things, but you also want to get them out. Moving exactly 5 frogs in a pond, well, that's a little skill, but it's also a lot of luck because sometimes, again, other people are moving the frogs on your boards, or they just don't move you don't get the right, you have an arrow, you're like, I want to make a move this direction, but I can't attach this tile to anywhere on my board that lets them move in that direction. Again, the game is fine. I'm building stuff, I'm moving frogs, and I get pointed in a game. But this game lacks almost any spark of excitement. It doesn't even give me a feeling of accomplishment. I mean, there's a little bit of I got some frogs into the pond. That's accomplishing, yeah. And you know what I think is going to happen in this game? That's going to be the whole game for almost everybody. Because when I taught it, that's what people were doing. They're like, I got to get rid of my frogs. That's all anyone thinks about. You're not thinking, get a bunch of scarecrows, get a bunch of tractors. I need to make a big field here, because it's all about get rid of those frogs. Because if you don't get rid of the frogs, none of the other stuff matters. And that becomes the focal point of the game, and it's an okay one. It's an okay, get rid of the frogs. So I think the theme is great. I think it's an interesting theme. I like reading about these. I mean, it's kind of a sad thing to read about invasive species like this, but it's an interesting subject for a game. I think the subject is more interesting than the game itself. There are lots of tile-laying games out there, let's compare it to Carcassonne, that feel like, look at this cool thing I built. When you're done with Queensland, you're like, that's fine. And then the moving the frogs around is kind of interesting, but it's more restrictive than you think it would be. So, interesting, but not interesting enough. That's Queensland. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see y'all next time.